Hello and welcome to our beloved parishioners. I'm Bailee.
And I'm Ashley.
And this is Praise
Praise
Be to
be to
Pod.
Pod.
I love that. Okay, Ashley, it's been a moment. What is on your heart?
Oh man, it's been a long time. So I'm going to tell you guys an inside scoop. We record our episodes ahead of time.
We are.
And because we're still learning and growing, our first episodes came out.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first one we recorded since then.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been terrifying. And fun. But my main hobby has been trolling TikTok.
Yes, you have been on TikTok.
Very active on TikTok.
Yes, every time I
Follow us.
look in, I'm just like, wow, where are all these notifications coming from? It's because you posted something else or
Coming
commented.
from all my funny memes. So please follow our TikTok.
Yes,
it's
at Praise Be to Pod.
chaotic. Yeah, at Praise Be to Pod. It's chaotic. It's insane. In order to like get your stuff to go to people's pages, you have to like interact with the kind of content that you want to your content to face. So really been going deep on TikTok. I have so much to tell you because it's been so long since we recorded. This is going to sound so outdated by the time this comes out, but I need to tell the story.
Okay.
So if you're like, yeah, I heard about that weeks ago. You did. Okay. Give me a break. Okay. So my husband, Danny, I've gotten some feedback that I never explained that Danny is my husband. So for everyone now, that's who he is. He's obsessed with concerts. He lived in like some sort of skeezy DIY warehouse in Brooklyn, and like they used to throw house concerts. I don't know this world.
Yeah, neither do I. I've never even heard that about him.
It sounds like somewhere I would die. I just like, this is an easy, cool thing to do as a guy. I don't know, like as a woman, it's terrifying to me.
Yeah, to live in a place where you also party sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, he has some great stories from it. I was being a missionary. He was like selling beer out of I don't know, some like venue he lived in. Anyway, because of this like part of his life that he still really loves concerts. He's over that vibe, but he knows when anything's happening in town.
He does. He's got his finger on the pulse of everything.
So I'm telling you all of this because a few weeks ago he was like, "Hey, I just heard All American Rejects is doing a house show in Minneapolis. We got to go." And I was like, cool. I loved them when I was in college. That'd be funny. So we'll see if we can get in. Then they changed the house show to a bowling alley.
Which I love.
And it was like 2 hours before doors opened. They announced it. So it was like real quick, and it was $10 at the door. And so we like eat some dinner. We had just ordered food when we saw this. So like we have to finish it. We have to wait for our food to come and then eat the food, and then we're going to go. And it was raining. And so we're like, okay, like, we'll go wait outside and see how long the line is. So we get there and there's like 100 people in line, and this woman's like walking around saying like, we're at capacity, but as people leave, we'll let new people in. Like, you never know. And it's like, I don't know, 6 o'clock, 6:30. So the doors are opening soon, but like they're already at capacity. So like, we're probably not going to get in. And people around us are like leaving and thinking and like waiting. And by 7, there's a line of like 2,000 people.
2,000 people.
Yeah. So like we're really in the front of the line. Like,
yeah. I had no idea it was that.
It
like,
was crazy.
You made it sound really intimate when we were talking about it initially.
Well, it is because it was, I think, oh shoot, I can't remember the capacity of the place. Like 500 or 600. Like not very big.
Yeah, it's a bowling alley.
And so we decide like we're probably not going to get in, but we're at the front of a very long line. So I was like, I really don't want to wait in the rain anymore. Like, are we really going to do this? And he's like, let me just see what I can figure out. So he goes up to the front, and I was like, what is he going to do?
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, he texts me, come up to the front. I struck a deal. And I was like, oh no.
Oh my gosh.
What did he do?
I love a man who takes charge.
And I see him Venmoing the security guard. I see $100 on his phone. He's Venmoing the security guard to get in. And the security guard goes, is this your wife? And I was like, wife? This is embarrassing.
What am I, a child bride?
I'm a wife?
Yeah.
Like
I'm only 41 years old. Calm down.
I like forgot that I was married. I don't know. It was just like, why are you calling me that? Like I was so
That's my boyfriend.
And I was like, ew, I'm not that old. I don't need to be a wife.
And you don't seem like someone's wife. You have a boyfriend, maybe. Maybe you have a boyfriend, but even that, like, That might be a little bit too much commitment.
Oh, and then like the people that were really close to the door were so mad when they saw this happening.
Well,
the
be
security
rich
guard's
then.
like, I got 4 more wristbands. Who's willing to pay? And Danny's like, me. And so then we got in, and it was a crazy show. Like I'll show a picture on the screen.
Oh, that is so cool.
So it was like really cute because All American Rejects are super cringy, but
that is like how they were meant to be consumed. Is in a bowling. That feels like an All American Rejects music video from the early 2000s.
And they played their like 10 banger songs, and that was it. And then they ended up doing a second show for all the people that were waiting. They gave out like tickets, so another group of people got to see them later that night. And it was really cute. There was like a family with a little girl bowling during the show. And so like in between songs, you'd hear like, yeah. And everyone was like cheering for her because she did well bowling.
It's so cute.
It was so cute. And so it ended up being a super fun night. But at first I was like, this is a bust.
Yeah. But then your man took charge.
Yeah. But then
your rich boyfriend.
Paid off a security guard.
Does he get you onto yachts too?
No, I wish.
Oh, whatever. Come on, Danny. Step
and then
it up.
as we were leaving, the people that were waiting in the rain the whole 2 or 3 hours were like, if you paid the security guard, I hate you. Like whatever. And I was like, sorry.
Welcome to capitalism.
By the way, the All American Rejects singer did start an OnlyFans. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think it was just a money grab, the whole thing, like publicity grab, money grab.
Everything is to promote an OnlyFans.
Yeah.
This podcast actually may one day promote our OnlyFans.
Ooh, to the dismay of my whole family.
Yeah, I don't really even know what my target audience would be for that. Obviously former evangelicals.
Obviously for my wifedom.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm taking up so much
no,
time.
please,
for what's
this
on
is
my
so
heart.
interesting.
I have an update for everybody, for all of our parishioners.
Oh, yes.
I passed with flying colors my ADHD test. I feel so validated.
Yes.
This is me medicated.
Yes.
And it has been amazing. This, like, I didn't know this, but ADHD is like a dopamine problem. So my medication has made me so happy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like meth, which
That's like,
who doesn't get meth?
That's why people get addicted to this.
Yeah.
I'm on a low dose, and I'm going to stick with it. So.
Okay. I remember when you told me that, I was so happy for you. Yes. It has to feel so just like validating, I would imagine.
It's so validating. I feel like a machine when I'm at work. It's great.
I love that.
I still like am a little spacey, but it's much better.
Yes. I love that. Yes. I'm really happy for you. So to be vulnerable, I have ADHD and I was prescribed a amphetamine for it, and I had to get off of it because I have a drug problem. It's okay, my psychiatrist knows. So when I found that for you, and I found out that you're taking it normally and appropriately every day, I'm just like, fuck you, Ashley. Okay, yes, well, I'm not addicted to meth. I'm really proud of you though, and I'm really happy for you.
But I'm really proud of you that you just don't continue to get your prescription.
It's so boring.
Yeah.
I can tell you one thing. Doing drugs is so much fun. And being sober from doing drugs is nice. Because
rewarding.
You live longer and it's rewarding and it feels like spiritually fulfilling and you are like overall happier and it's boring as fuck.
Yeah, I'm
sorry. I hate it.
Proud of you.
But I'm going to stick to it.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, do you have anything else on your heart?
I do! So, my sister had a baby while we were out. He is my first / niece or nephew, and he is the love of my life. I love him so much. He is so beautiful, and I've asked people who have no dog in this fight, is this a cute baby or am I just upset? Yeah. He is cute as hell. Yes. He is such a cute baby. But when I first found out that my sister was pregnant with him, the due date that he had would have made him a Taurus. And so I was like, in my mind, I was like, he just feels like a Gemini to me. And I really wanted him to be a Gemini, but his due date was that he was a Taurus. But as it turns out, God had bigger plans for him, and he is a Gemini. He was born late, and he has the same birthday as Ashley.
Yes.
So that's so much fun for us. But he's just a little Gemini miracle, and we're just so happy. Wow. I love him so much.
It's so cute.
Yeah. So
we had a lot of new babies in our world.
Everyone is having babies right now. Apparently people were really horny last August or whatever time that would be, because I am going to like so many baby showers right now. I'm getting so many baby gifts, and I love babies, so I'm just eating it all up.
Congrats to one of my best friends, just had a baby too. Also a Gemini boy.
Lucky.
Also the cutest baby I've ever seen.
Yes.
So when she listens to this in 3 months, when she has time again and a brain again, congrats.
Congrats.
Jessica and Ryan. And also Mara and Cameron.
Oh,
our other friends here. Yes, so many babies right now.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Okay, but we should probably get into our gnarly topic for today.
We have a wild topic, and it has nothing to do with All American Rejects or methamphetamines.
Not really.
Or babies.
Yeah. No, I don't.
No.
Not really. Yeah. No, actually the opposite. Okay, so we are actually going to dive into a topic today that had an absolute chokehold on me and my faith in my church community growing up. Irritated you to no end, and to this day has like such a big impact on like evangelical American culture, and that is the topic of the end times. So for those of you who don't know, the end times refers to this future period of like human history where some Christians believe that biblical prophecies are supposed to be filled, that basically create a path for Jesus to come back for the second coming. So for many Christians, and like I think a lot of Christians do believe in the end times, but I think evangelicals in particular live their life preparing for the end times. At least my iteration of it. Would you say yours was too?
And like they get very obsessed with talking about how Jesus will come back in my lifetime.
Yes.
Like it has anything to do with you.
Yes.
Like, isn't the whole point that this is bigger than us? It's like my lifetime, it will happen. Right. We need to prepare.
And the big thing I think in scripture is that we won't know the day or the hour, but that doesn't stop evangelicals. Yes. They want to know to the precision of when Jesus is coming back. Yes. So yeah, basically the end times is about Jesus coming back, but before then it predicts an event called the Rapture, which is when a bunch of Christians get taken up into heaven. A 7-year tribulation, which is when everyone is super sad and bummed out because the Antichrist is ruining their lives, but not the Christians because they're in heaven now. But some people can convert to Christianity if they don't take the mark of the beast. And then
it sounds insane.
I love it. It's so much fun. But we'll get into like the specifics of it. But then what happens after that is the Battle of Armageddon. But then Jesus comes back. He defeats the Antichrist with all of the Christians and all the martyrs. And then they live happily ever after in the New Jerusalem. And then all of the non-Christians and Satan and the Antichrist burn in the lake of fire forever. So,
okay, I just have a question.
Yeah.
They believe that the Antichrist is here, so the rapture comes and takes all the Christians away.
I think that is up for like debate of specifically when he would rise to power, but around the time where he rises to power, but things still look somewhat good but are starting to get ominous, that's when the rapture would take place. Once the Christians are gone, then the Antichrist is supposed to like in like a blink of an eye ascend to power.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
well, actually what it says in the Bible is that the Antichrist would succumb like a head wound, but then he wouldn't die from it, and then his false prophet in him would rise to power. I don't know if this sounds like anyone familiar, but that is supposed to be an indicator of the Antichrist actually rising to power, is that he would like suffer a head wound but not die, and then the world would be like, that's amazing, and then they would appoint him to power.
But wouldn't people have already been sucked up into the heavens?
I don't think that I think it's up for debate on specifically when that rapture event happens, but when it like after it happens, that's when like the end times escalate into the tribulation. But that transition from like the beginning of the end times to the rapture to the tribulation is up for debate. I mean, it's all up for debate, but this specifically, I think,
if you want to debate it.
If you want to debate it, but that's kind of what I think like the belief is.
Okay.
But obviously this like belief in the apocalypse sounds like really crazy, but it had a really big part of our upbringing, and it was taught to at least me with such fervor
your upbringing.
Yeah, my upbringing. Yeah. Such fervor and urgency, and a lot of our teaching was centered around preparing for the end times and for just like creating a world where Jesus would come back. And so, yeah, now I guess in this episode, we're just going to talk about like, you know, how that belief came to be, like whether it was a belief that Christians have always had in Christianity, what has like changed in the theology of it. And then we'll unpack the like pop culture influence, and then also the very strong political influence that the Rapture has on, or like the end times belief have on the public. Because it actually, like, even if you're not a Christian, it like highly impacts the politics of, I guess, the modern world in a really creepy way, honestly. So before we get into the nitty gritty of it, though, I have a little game.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about it. So I have a series of photos that I am going to present to Ashley, and you can also find them if you're watching on YouTube on the screen, or on an Instagram post. We'll include the photos there. But they are of public figures that are somewhat related to Christianity or the evangelical world.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you if you think, or how you think these public figures would fare in the rapture. What would happen to them if they stay behind, how they would like fare in the end times, in the tribulation, that kind of thing.
Okay. And you have to fight in the tribulation?
I think that you have to, like, I mean, if you convert to Christianity and you resist the mark of the beast, like during the tribulation, you do have to, like, I mean, it's kind of like a bunker situation, I think.
Like a war.
Yeah, well, the final war is in the very end, the Battle of Armageddon.
Okay.
Keep up, Ashley.
All right.
Okay. So the first person that I'm going to show you is the famous David Koresh, the cult leader from Waco. How are you familiar with David Koresh and his work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I love a good cult.
I love a good cult. I love a good charismatic man.
I think that he would create his own cult. There's an ad in here. He would create his own cult and have his own end times of his cult.
Yeah, because that's what he did.
His bunker.
That's literally what he did.
So, he would not be raptured.
Yeah, because
he would obviously be left behind.
Yeah, because he said that he was Jesus, which is pretty blasphemous.
Yeah, so I think his world would be small, but he would think it was big.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Joel Osteen, televangelist.
Oh, raptured.
Are you sure? Why do you think that? It literally says in the Bible that it's harder for a rich man to inherit the kingdom of God than a camel.
I know he's rich, but I do think he's probably saved.
I mean, he's probably like done this.
Like legally saved, I think he'd be raptured.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next person. Other televangelist, Joyce Meyer.
Oh, definitely raptured.
Oh, yeah.
Sweetheart.
I actually kind of like her. Is that crazy?
No, I worked with her in I didn't work directly with her, but I worked with her ministries in one of the nonprofits I worked for. She was wonderful.
Really?
Yes.
So it was a good experience?
Yes, she was wonderful. We did like a program in Africa with her. She was lovely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So actually, before I was like organizing this game, I tried to look into any controversies that she was involved in.
She's wonderful.
And I didn't really find any. There was one where she had been counseling this couple. And the husband was talking about having like thoughts of killing his wife. He ultimately did kill her.
Oh no.
Yeah, and Joyce Meyer hadn't reported that he was having those thoughts, which is terrible. But also it's like, it's hard to know what happened. That feels a little bit more like just an awful situation that like went south.
I have grace for anyone who's having to hear things like that.
Yeah, so that's what she had gone through. She also has never declared affiliation with a political party or a politician, but she does often give like a please go out and vote, which I feel like if you're a televangelist is often a dog whistle for voting for a Republican. She also just kind of seems like a Republican, and she'll say things like, go vote for like good Christian values, which we know what she means by that. But well, you never know. You never really know. Yeah. And I will say there is a part of me that's like, if she voted, or she's basically trying to get people to vote Republican, you'd think that she would just say that because that would vibe well with her community. The fact that she's being vague about it makes me think like,
she's a woman in leadership.
Did you vote for Kamala Harris?
Who knows?
My love. Joyce Myers, if you're listening right now, can you please tell us who you voted for?
Oh.
Okay. We're going to move on. Okay. Katy Perry.
Ooh. I think she would be on the Antichrist team.
Why?
Yeah, she'd just be a part of that cabinet, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
She's just been too into Elon Musk the last couple years.
Wait, has she?
Yeah.
Okay. I think her going to space was really out of touch, and the community that goes to space right now, the people who are just, they do not have their finger on the pulse of like what the world is going through right now.
I remember her doing something about her Cybertruck and
she has a Cybertruck.
I don't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. Like come after me in the comments, but I definitely think she'd be on the cabinet.
Okay.
The Antichrist.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Sadly, I don't think she's actually saved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a once saved, always saved kind of person, and I believe that she at one point in time did the
I don't think she did. I don't think she did in her heart.
Katy Perry, if you're listening.
No one's listening. No. Doesn't even matter.
Okay, this one is maybe a little bit too on the nose. Kirk Cameron.
Oh, Raptured.
Yeah.
Of course.
He invented the Rapture.
He invented it.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yes.
We're
Amanda's sister.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, we're gonna do one more.
Okay.
This is kind of a deep dive. Stacey Orico, early 2000s Christian pop singer.
I actually don't know anything about her personal life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna guess Raptured. Do you know more about her personal life? Or
I did check in to see where she is today, because she is a Christian and she also did music and she had those bangers stuck, and There's Gotta Be More to Life, which I listened to There's Gotta Be More to Life recently, and I was like, this is kind of good. She was going through, she was having some really profound existential moments as a teen.
Maybe she was deconstructing.
Maybe kind of felt a little bit like that. Which like all of the actual good early 2000s Christian artists did end up deconstructing, because I think that they wrestled with it a lot more.
They were serious about their creative endeavors.
Yeah. She has tried to distance herself from that image now and is a little bit more into like metaphysical spirituality.
Oh, so maybe not Raptured.
No, I think she went down the Bailee Payne route. Honestly.
Well, she's fighting alongside us.
Yes. Okay, I actually have one more person.
Okay, right.
I'm not supposed to, but I really want to do this person. Stephen Baldwin.
Oh, no. I think he'd be on the cabinet with Katie.
I think, wait, really?
Yeah.
Stephen Baldwin.
Is he the one from the Mark of the Beast movie?
Yeah, but he's a born again Christian.
Yeah, but in his heart.
You don't think he is in his heart a born again Christian?
No.
Okay.
He's not a Kirk Cameron.
I mean, no.
He's no Kirk Cameron.
But he like dedicated his life to like Christian media.
Demure.
I don't know. I feel like he really dove in. I mean, but this is
differ.
Yeah, I've asked you, so like if that's what you think, then that's what you think.
Okay. I know he's making a lot of money with his cool Christian movies.
Apparently. Okay, so Ashley, so our backgrounds are a little bit different in what we were taught about the end times. What specifically was your background and association with it?
Okay, I feel like when we talked about purity culture in a previous episode, I felt really jealous of how it didn't impact you as horrifyingly as it did me. And I feel like you're maybe going to have that experience with me today.
Oh, maybe.
Because I can't think of any time that someone talked to me about the rapture or taught me about the rapture. At some point, I learned about it. And I just learned, this is what happens. Jesus is going to come back someday. You're going to get sucked into the sky. You don't want to be left behind.
Yeah.
Never thought about it again. Didn't care. I remember talking to a friend once. Oh, I hope I get married before, because you have to do this as a marriage when you're an evangelical Christian.
Yeah.
It's like, I hope I get married before the rapture. And then I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Like people would get into it and discuss it and talk about pre-trib, post-trib. I don't care. That's what I would say. I'd be like, oh, you're talking about this? I'm going to leave.
Really?
Didn't care about it at all. Because what are you supposed to do?
But
how do you prepare if you're going to be sucked into the sky? There's nothing to prepare.
You could probably like build a bunker.
Why? I won't be there.
Depending on like what your iteration of like
Why would you build a bunker if you think that you're not going to be there?
If you have a pre-trib theology where you think you'll be raptured.
This is where I just stopped listening. So like I don't even know.
For context of this too, there was a period of time where Ashley was going over the notes and she saw that I put an entire Bible verse in Revelation, and she's like, Bailee, we are not going to read the book of Revelation. And I was like, fine.
I was like, this is so boring.
It's so cool.
And it's at the end of the episode. They're just going to turn it off if they're even listening.
Okay, so even when you like dove into like when you were like in Arizona, when you were like really in it, or when you were a missionary, people didn't feel a sense of urgency to make you believe fervently in the end times?
Oh, they wanted to talk to me about it, but
So
I
you're still
wasn't
fed it.
interested.
Okay.
No, it was like peers. They were like, why don't you care about the tribulation? And I was like, because I don't care. If I need to prepare something, God's not tricking me.
Yeah.
Like, if I need to know something for this like big part of my life, then God would prepare me.
Yeah.
Why do I need to put in all this effort into something that's like maybe gonna happen?
Yeah.
What I knew is that like right now I need to focus on learning how to pray for 10 hours because I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was focused on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just because like you didn't get God as a kid that you weren't as invested in the end times.
I didn't care, and I thought that it was really weird that people were so obsessed with it.
Interesting.
It made me feel like they thought they knew something that no one else knew, and it was like, I'm like, God's not like that.
Yeah.
It's not a big trick.
Well, and I people who are really into the end times do, I think, have the impression that they're in on
like
God's plan in a way that other people
God
aren't.
doesn't want to like trick people.
Oh, that's not what I was told. I was told he loves his tricks.
So anyway, I know that you have way more to share. So tell me your story with this horrifying experience you had.
So growing up, we were like a doomsday church. Like everything was focused on preparing for the end times. I would say that happened even more so after my dad passed away, because that's what my mom got into, was like, we got heavily involved with the International House of Prayer during that period of time, which is heavily focused on the end times. And also doesn't believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. It believes that the rapture will happen after the tribulation, and that Christians,
the tribulation is the wartime?
The 7 years of like suffering.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, like, we're supposed to be here.
You have to fight, and then you get to
or
go
just
to the
like
sky.
Continue to evangelize to people and resist the mark of the beast and the Antichrist.
Okay.
And then you might die during that period of time too, because it'll be extra dangerous. But we believe that we would suffer through it, so like the bunker would be useful to us.
But wouldn't you rather just die?
But if you like.
If you think that you're gonna go into heaven.
But I think that, like, if God's plan was to make you a soldier in the end times where you were evangelizing to people, like, you can't leave. Okay, there is literally a line in Left Behind where Kirk Cameron says, you can't die until God says it's time.
So this is what weren't you up at night every night thinking about this? Like,
yes.
Were you terrified?
Absolutely. My whole life was surrounding it. It was, like, I had so many plans around it. In fact, like, this is going to sound crazy. So I ended up getting a degree in international relations because somebody at the International House of Prayer said I needed to do that because I needed to be like a political player in the end times. Like, that's how integrated it was into my life, that it actually like pointed me towards my vocation.
If only they knew what you did in politics.
I did. I got on the Antichrist cabinet. Turns out she's so much fun. Yeah, we were really involved in it. And if you are in the charismatic iteration of Christianity and you were involved in end time stuff, you were also very likely a diehard Zionist, which is the belief that like Israel would be a very big player in the end times, that Israel can do no wrong, that kind of stuff. So like our church had like an American flag and an Israel flag on the outside of it.
Did
like,
you have shofars too?
Yes, we had shofars too. People were like, well, Lord. Which is like, I guess God likes the sound of a shofar. So like we did that. And then we also were very like, you know how like there's a really big theme in like red pill stuff right now where people are like wanting to live off the grid, anti-government stuff.
Yeah.
That
doomsday prepper.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of that, even just like tradwife content, stems from like conservative evangelical preparation for the end times. So there were a lot of like off the grid type people who would come into our church as well. And so a lot of that like libertarian, resisting the government, anything that like cell phone trackers, all that kind of stuff was like people were really skeptical of. Also vaccines. So
what's that have to do with the end times?
I think that like some people,
it's the mark of the beast.
Some people thought that, but I think that anytime the government tries to like extend its hand a little bit too much, that was a belief that like it was prepping people's souls for like accepting eventually like a mark like that. Anytime the government had significant overreach, it believed that it would contribute to this one world government that would eventually be like the puppet marionette strings that the Antichrist would be able to control people with.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what we believe. Did you ever have a moment where you thought that you had been left behind? I suppose you probably hadn't, because you didn't give a fuck.
I don't think so. I mean, like, I make memes about it because people really like those ones on our TikTok. But no.
Okay, gotcha. I had plenty of those. I like remember waking up a lot in the middle of the night and going to like check to see if my like parents were still like, you know, asleep and like alive. And I remember one time like accidentally locking myself in my bedroom. And I was like, hey, can someone come like let me out? Like I accidentally locked myself in, and then nobody came, but I knew that people had originally been in the house, and we didn't have a very big house. And so I was just like, I kept yelling for people and no one came. And I started crying because I was like, it's the rapture. Everyone got rapture without me. And my mom finally heard, and she came and she's like, what are you freaking out about? She's like, I thought you had been raptured. And then she was like, what do you mean? And then now looking back, I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? That's exactly what you told me would happen. I was just being a really dedicated Christian.
Yeah. It's taking it to heart.
Exactly. So yeah, I had plenty of those experiences. Yeah, I was fully prepared for the end. And I felt like I was kind of living to die, as much as that sounds like really like terrible. We can talk about like kind of how it's
serious.
It's so serious
for a kid.
Yeah, but I don't really know a life without it, to be honest with you. I mean, life feels really light and free now. But it took a long time to deconstruct that, because there was such a like fatalist annihilation outlook to a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
There was a lot of severity to like anytime I would anticipate an outcome that I had to work through.
Wow.
But yeah. So the end times are a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
And they
haven't to me.
Yes. And they haven't always been told the same way that we experienced it now. So there is a timeline to how the beliefs of the rapture kind of I guess unfolded. So we're going to get into it.
Yes.
Ashley, if you want to start us on that.
So we will have a timeline that I had a lot of fun designing.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous.
On YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening, we'll also post it on our Instagram. So if you are also like a visual learner like us, you can go look at that when you're listening or later. So we'll put those up like every block of this new timeline. So I had to do a lot of research for this because, as you can tell, I didn't care enough to know anything about it. And the research actually ended up being how the Bible's been changed over time. And it was kind of scary and interesting. I realized that's like step one for a lot of people deconstructing. And I always just thought, well, we don't know.
Yeah.
But this is kind of how we got to this theology. It's like the timeline of end times theology.
Yes.
So in the first century, obviously, Jesus leaves. He dies
away
on the cross and comes back and then goes again. And then Christians immediately start thinking he's going to come again. So they're like, scan in the sky. Where's he going to be?
Right. And to their credit, he says he's coming back soon.
Yeah.
According to the Gospels.
But we don't know the day or the time or the hour.
Right. But he did say the word soon, I think. So, and up to interpretation. But yeah.
So,
and then about 95 years after his death, a person who refers to themselves by the name of John writes the book of Revelation on the island of Patmos. It is colloquially given credit to like John the Apostle, the one who had a crush on Jesus, obviously. It's so obvious. It's okay. But it is not actually confirmed that that is the John. It's just someone who calls themselves John, who has been shipwrecked on the island of Patmos. He writes this book that kind of reads a little bit like a fever dream, but is a prophetic vision of what the church believes is to come in the end times. Now, it's filled with like a lot of like dragons and beasts and symbols, scrolls. He sees these events play out. He sees Israel as a big part of it. But most academics, I would say, don't actually interpret it as a prophetic word of like what he thought was going to come like when Jesus returns, but rather it kind of reads a lot like the grief of what was happening with the occupation of Rome. in Judea at the time. And at that time also Nero was like brutally targeting Christians specifically and executing them. So that was a really big part of it too.
Yeah.
And less about like the modern day Israel as we know it, and more about the fact that like Rome was occupying Judea at the time, was being very brutal. And John, who is a Jewish person who's been stranded on Patmos, is clearly grieving that loss. And that's how I would read it today. But that is not necessarily how it was interpreted in the future. Right. But how would you say it kind of like evolves after that?
Yeah, then in the 2nd to 4th centuries, church leaders are seeing Revelation as just symbolic, nothing insane. And the main leader that they attached to that time is Augustine, St. Augustine. And then in the Middle Ages, everything was terrible. And everyone just thought the world was ending because how could it get any worse? Yep. We're all dying and everything's disgusting. And then in the 1500s, Protestants began calling the Pope the Antichrist.
Yes.
So Catholics were like, what?
We don't like that.
And this is is this where it started, where like Christians were like, Catholics aren't Christian? I don't know if that's where it started, but
maybe. I feel like it's always just been like a couple of girls fighting with each other. It's really like Trump and Elon, if you ask me.
Totally.
So yeah, I'm not sure if that's where like the OG hate came from, but yeah, definitely.
So then we can, what's next here?
Yeah. So after that, in like the 19th century, 1800s, there is a British minister by the name of John Darby who introduces this bold idea called dispensationalism, which is a belief that the like entirety of human history is divided into these different eras, and these different eras represent ways that God is interacting differently with people. In that timeline that he gives, he offers an event called the Rapture. And after the Rapture is the Tribulation, and after the Tribulation is the Battle of Armageddon and the New Jerusalem being created. And he creates these like timelines that he believes are how things are actually going to unfold. And one of the really interesting things that he predicts in the 1800s is that Israel would become a nation again, and that the Jewish people of the diaspora would start returning to Israel or the Judea area, which does end up happening in 1948.
And like, what in the 1800s was where Israel is now? What was there?
It had been Palestine, I believe, right?
The whole thing. I don't know.
I'm assuming it was
not a history girl.
Yeah. Well, at the time, Israel was not an established nation. So I believe it was just a Palestinian territory at the time. I might be incorrect about that, though, but we can also fact check
Sorry
that
to put you
later.
On the spot.
No, that's okay.
I have another question.
Yes.
So this John Darby.
Yes.
Why do you know why everyone respects him or like listens to him?
Well, now the reason is because there was later on something called the Scofield Bible that was created. Yeah. And the Scofield Bible ended up using his timeline as footnotes in the Bible, basically. And it talks about like the rapture. It also introduces a very literal interpretation of like the rapture and the end times and how you interpret it. It's kind of the introduction of fundamentalism, honestly. And then what also happens is it also like references like Israel as a main player. So it popularizes that. And then because Israel does become a nation, Christians are like, wait, what? Like this prophecy is coming true. So John Darby is seen as kind of like a prophetic player.
But like, why did anyone, like, what are his credentials? Just from like being a preacher in England? Like,
I'm not sure. I think it's because he correctly like
he just anticipated. Wrote it down and then got into this special Bible.
I believe so, but I think it was, I
didn't have too much power.
I think it's that, but I think a lot of it is because he did get one prophecy kind of correct. And so then people gave him a platform and believed him a little bit more, is my understanding of what happened. But yeah, basically the Scofield Bible becomes like a really big teacher in a lot of seminaries and in a lot of like specifically Protestant like iterations of Christianity. And it is what a lot of end times teaching is comes from now. And it uses John Darby's footnotes to kind of tell that entire story. And it became wildly popular amongst Protestants, especially in the early 20th century, and just, normalized rapture theology in a lot of iterations of Christianity. And it also kind of created that transition of the Bible having to be taught by a pastor, but became something that everybody could read and everybody could participate in. So it was kind of like the populist book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is like the early 1900s.
Correct. Yes. And then what happens after that, Ashley?
And then, everyone's just reading their Bible with their footnotes from John Darby.
That they can now read.
And now that is the same as the Bible. And then in the 70s, The Late Great Planet Earth, a book, that's the name of a book, turns prophecy into like a Cold War thriller.
Yes.
So they're in the height of the Cold War in 1970. And this author, Hal Lindsey, a former Navy guy turned evangelist. And this was the book that took the Darby Rapture theology, mixed it with the anxiety everyone was having about the Cold War.
Yeah, like the Red Scare.
Yeah, thinking that they're going to get nuclear bombed. And turned it into this like prophetic thriller.
Right.
But people were like, wait, this is actually my Bible now too.
Right. And that would also make sense why like a lot of like end times media now paints communism as like the one world government, because communism was also the evil player of the Cold War.
Yes. So it kind of took like current events and like the formation of Israel, like you're saying, and the rise of the Soviet Union, and made it fulfill biblical prophecy. So this book was kind of saying like, we're headed straight for the end of the world. Jesus will be back really soon. And this book was a #1 bestseller.
It like flew off the shelves.
Yes. And it made end times prophecy mainstream. And it helped convince millions of people that this idea is real. And
it was happening soon.
Yes. And there was even a movie narrated by Orson Welles, which I haven't read or I haven't watched.
Yeah, I didn't even know that there had been a movie and turned into it.
So if you were too bored to listen to all of that, The Late Great Planet Earth is the book that said, the Bible predicted the evening news, and America said, say less. That's what I wrote in my notes that I couldn't read.
So fast forward, and this is where I think it becomes a little relevant today, and this is where people are going to start remembering. In the 1990s to early 2000s, there is a book series turned movie that flies off the shelves as well, called Left Behind, starring Kirk Cameron from Growing Pains, teenage heartthrob along with Leonardo DiCaprio. Oh, he's not in Left Behind, but he was a heartthrob with Kirk Cameron in Growing Pains, to clarify. I feel like that's important. Leonardo DiCaprio, if you're watching this, I wasn't saying you're in Left Behind. So yeah, Left Behind kind of like, Kirk Cameron has this like major conversion experience and decides that he wants to die.
And he won't stop talking about it.
He loves to evangelize. He loves to talk about it. And he gets into this series that becomes very popular. It's a book series also written by Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins. And I know because
You're not even in our notes.
I remember because I've read all of them.
Isn't there like 1,000?
There's like 8 or 9, I think. There's also a kids book series, which I started reading, and then my mom was like, you're ready for the adult Left Behind series.
Wow. You need more anxiety.
Exactly. And then so what's really funny, I will say, a little funny story about Left Behind is the Antichrist who rises to power in your Nicolae Carpathia is the Attorney General of the United Nations. When I got really into Left Behind, I remember there being a newly appointed Attorney General. And when I saw that on the cover of Time magazine, I blew a fucking gasket. I was like, Mom! And I was at school and I was like, guys, this is so serious. And I was like, this is the Antichrist, he's here. And I like told Mom, and this was like not long after 9/11. So like, everything was super hyped. I was like, Mom, there's a new Attorney General that's the Antichrist. And she was like, yeah, maybe. And she acted like she hadn't created this monster.
Yeah, why wasn't she more invested in
she
these
was just
ideas?
like, say more. But yeah, so that was a really big thing that happened. But that took like my generation by storm, and that really popularized modern day, I guess, obsession with the end times and that it would be happening soon. Because it was like a movie series that was made during that period of time. Had half the movie takes place in Israel, so that's like a really big part of it. So yeah, that ends up like really popularizing, I guess, like the early 2000s expression, Y2K version and iteration of end times rapture culture.
Did they make all 9 books into 9 movies?
No, there are 3 movies, I think.
Are they good? Are they better or worse than God's Not Dead?
I don't know. I actually don't know if I can say. They are not good. Are they fun? I had so much fun watching them.
Okay.
They were also hot. They were sexy. There was an affair in it.
Oh my God.
There was a sexy pilot who was having an affair with a flight attendant. And then she leaves him for the Antichrist. And she gets pregnant with his baby. How is that not hot? I literally, as a little kid, was like, play it again. It was so fun.
It was some fun.
Mm-hmm. And it made it seem just like, it was very apocalyptic and fun. And I had like, I was also like really interested in like the international news. So like that was a really big part of it too. Cause like Israel and the Middle East all is like a really big player.
I'm learning so much about you.
I guess so.
I would, this is a little off topic, but I would like to say that Bailee and I realized that we were both in Israel at the same time.
Yes.
At a charismatic conference.
We were.
That's the first time I heard a shofar. I was there for work.
I wish
I was forced to go, but she went voluntarily.
I wish that was the first time I had heard a shofar. No, I went with my school, but at Oral Roberts University.
Yeah, but they didn't make you, did they?
Well, I didn't have a gun to my head. Like, if I hadn't gone, I certainly wouldn't have been cool. I was like selected to go on this trip to the Middle East. And we didn't spend most of our time in Israel. We spent it like working in a refugee camp in Jordan. But then they were like,
okay, you don't need to like make it sound cooler.
It's not. But we popped into Jerusalem and we were like, we should go to this event. And should we say the name of the event?
It doesn't matter. Everyone knows.
What was it called?
Do you remember?
It was like Empower 21.
Empower number. Yeah.
Empower 21, I think it was called. Something
31.
like that.
Proverbs 31.
21.
Proverbs 31 woman.
Why would it be that? Why would it be an eschatological event about being a Proverbs 31?
Also, I didn't go to any of the event because I was like a booth vendor. So I sat outside.
You were working it.
Yeah, I sat outside.
I was an attendee and I was a little bit like, I had a friend that was working there. So I was like, we should go hang out with so-and-so. But yeah, when we popped into Jerusalem for a few days and we went to that event, but then we ended up finding out when we were just chatting one day that we had both been, and we had already had the podcast idea. We found out we had both been in Jerusalem at the same time.
Wow.
I'd like to think we walked by each other. That was a prophetic moment for us.
I think so. Also, I went to dinner with a bunch of people from like AG headquarters because they were in the booth next to me and I made friends with one of the people that was in the booth next to me. And I wasn't there with anybody. Like I didn't know anyone. And she's like, oh, do you want to come out with us? And I was like, sure. And we went to dinner and I like didn't know the rules of my organization or didn't really think about it. And I like got a glass of wine at dinner and everyone lost their shit.
Really?
Yes.
Oh yeah. You can't.
They were like, oh, do you not sign a contract with your company? And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Did I do something wrong?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
That's wild.
Because I had been outside of this like creepy no alcohol world for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're in Jerusalem. I'm not going to get a glass of wine.
No kidding.
This is what Jesus taught me.
Yeah, he literally turned water into it.
This is so off topic, but you know, it's real.
Actually, the first time I ever got shit-faced drunk was in Jerusalem.
Oh my God. You're the Antichrist!
I literally remember it was on that trip and I had signed an honor code with Oral Roberts University.
Whoa!
What are they going to do? Rescind my diploma? You're going to lose your accreditation soon anyway. But I was just like, with the girls, like, let's go out on the town in Jerusalem. So we went and we had so much fun. I remember getting so drunk. I had to lay on this like cobblestone platform in the old city. And I was just like, wow, so much history has taken place on this very cobblestone. Yeah, and I am drunk off my mind. It was so much fun.
Wow.
I met a boy that night too.
Whoa.
He was in the IDF though. Yikes.
Oh.
I know.
It gets wilder.
It just gets wilder.
I remember
I was not affiliated with it. I remember hearing that he was in the IDF and I was like, ugh, gross as if.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was my Israel experience. As we know, the end times, like, or at least that you and I know, the end times plays like a pretty big role, I would say, in the culture today because it heavily influences the way the like religious right votes. So even if like you don't like personally like believe in it, there are so many people who are pretty much deciding our elections who do believe that the end times is coming, and it kind of becomes a really toxic thing because this is, you know, they typically don't care about the environment that much.
Yes.
They have like a really scary view on like how Israel should be operating in the world and how much power it should have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really all based on this theory that like Jesus is going to come back and that the world is going to be annihilated. Like we are living our lives today controlled by, I think, people who believe that this stuff is really happening. And that's scary as hell to me.
Well, what I think is interesting about any religion in general is like, if you believe in a prophecy, that will happen no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So like, what I don't understand is why we need to destroy the planet just because we think that it might go away someday. Like, but what if it doesn't?
Yeah.
You know, like, you're just making it happen instead.
I think if I had to guess, I don't think that these evangelical Christians are purposely trying to destroy the planet. I think that they are not prioritizing protecting it. And I also think that they are essentially like manifesting this. Like they want it to happen so bad that they are subconsciously behaving in a way that will like hasten the coming of Christ.
Okay, one time I got in trouble for being too much of a planet lover.
Okay. Then what happened?
Have I ever told you?
No, tell me.
Okay, so I was really annoying in college.
Okay.
Because I feel like that was the first time I realized I like cared about a lot of things that weren't just my youth group boyfriends. And I had I was the type of girl who went to college and then had a cause for everything.
Yeah.
Like, she just believed in
you
everything.
just couldn't help but like
I was like so annoying. So one of those, like, I became a vegetarian because of how meat ruins the planet. And I didn't buy any new clothes because I cared about, you know, the tiny children's fingers that were sewing all my clothes.
Yeah.
These are all good things. But I also wouldn't shut up about it. And I wouldn't leave anyone alone.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how annoying I was until I saw a college friend later that was like, oh, I don't even know if you eat meat. And I was like, what? Why would you think that? Oh, because you only knew when I'm my most annoying and you still loved me.
Oh.
How kind.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was very involved with InterVarsity and I was applying to work for InterVarsity at my alma mater. But the guy who worked there at the time who really liked me was leaving to go to Arizona, who like I later went and followed there. But I wanted to be in Wisconsin instead. And this new guy had to like approve my hiring or not. And he came to our service, like we called it large group, like our campus service. And I spoke at it and I was like very passionate about the idea of like God saying tend the garden in Genesis and like saying that is a command from God to care about the earth.
Yeah.
And like trying to shift the evangelical idea that we don't need to care about the earth. That guy didn't hire me. I didn't get hired for a job that I had to fundraise for.
No way.
Yeah.
Because you said you think that we should recycle.
Too liberal.
Wow.
And so then I called crying to my old staff guy. I was like, why wouldn't you hire me? And he's like, I will. I think you're great. And then he hired me in Arizona.
That is so wild.
Got in trouble for being too earth friendly.
Yeah. Which you would think if someone were a Bible believing Christian that they would be leading the environmental movement because that is God's earth that he created.
I know.
Like, but they're not. They want to see it burn because they want Jesus to come back and to vibe with him, I guess, while everyone else is burning in the lake of fire.
Katy Perry.
And with Katy Perry. Yep, exactly.
Not to Joel Osteen.
Yes. So anyway, I think that like, belief in the end times can be like really dangerous because I think that there are a lot of like political groups that see this group of people who believe in it and are using it to forward like a really dangerous agenda. And so I think that like, regardless of whether or not the belief in the end times is something that interests someone, I think that I would think that it's pertinent for people to know what these people believe because
like
it's
what's driving their motivations.
What's driving it. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's kind of what I think about like the impact. But what would you say, like, I mean, I know you didn't really care too much about the end times, but what was kind of a theological shift for you where you moved away from that interpretation?
Yeah, I remember thinking like, oh, this is just what everyone believes. I never heard any different. And then someone making a joke to me in my 20s, they were like, can you believe that we used to think we'd just get sucked up into the sky? And I was like, wait, who doesn't believe that anymore?
Yeah.
So we all believe that.
Yeah.
When did you stop believing that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't. And then I was like, well, I guess I just don't really care. I don't know. And I never really thought about it again. Like,
yeah.
It was never driving me. But having grown up the way you did, like, that would be a lot of unlearning.
Yeah.
How did you start to think differently about it?
You know, to be honest with you, that was such an easy thing to let go because it's so fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like, I think that learning that belief in the end times as I know it is a more modern day thing.
Yeah. It's really scary.
Yeah. That was like, definitely like, oh, this isn't a thing that like, the early church was kind of in some ways waiting for Jesus. Paul talks about how like there's no point in getting married because like Jesus is coming back soon. Jesus also says like, I'll be back, bitches, but like doesn't come back. So like I get that was a part of it, but finding out that how I understood it or how it was taught was kind of, you know, what was fueling my like what I was, you know, the faith journey that I was on kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, all right, this might not be what I thought it was going to be. Also, just kind of seeing the intersection of the religious right with belief in the end times and like how Zionism was influencing a lot of it. That was a really big thing where I was like, this is like not only untrue, it's actually wicked.
Yeah.
That was like a really big part of it that made me completely renounce it. Like, I think it's one of those things, like there's some things that I look at and I'm like, that's so funny. And there are so many parts of the end times that I believe that like, that is hilarious. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And then there's other things where I'm just like, that is so dangerous. Like that is a really dangerous rabbit hole to get down.
Yeah.
But I still, like, to be honest with you, like, I don't believe in the end times like that, but I do have, like, I think one of the ways that it still influences how I interact with the world now is I do kind of have a little bit of an apocalyptic feeling about what's happening in the world. And just like John in Revelation, what he was going through probably felt like the end. Or the people in the Middle Ages were like, it's kind of in some ways a privilege to not believe in the end times because I'm not in a hurry to get out of this body because I'm living a really beautiful life. And I spent my childhood anticipating that this was the life that didn't matter. Yeah. And so I want to get back those years that I lost. And like, this is probably the only life that I will ever live. And when I'm gone, lights out. And because of that, this life becomes so precious. And I don't want to offer it up as a living sacrifice, as the people in my faith would say, or my former faith would say. And so, sorry, I got a little sidetracked with that.
No, and I think maybe it'd be helpful, like, to anybody else who's, like, mourning that. That's so hard. Like, I just want to validate that if you're in that place right now, it's really hard to mourn your whole childhood being so serious and so scary.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
And I also have a lot of compassion in some sense for people who gravitate towards it. Because, like, if your life sucks, knowing that there's redemption on the other side of this and that, like, you will be avenged for the pain that you went through and that, like, the first shall become last and this paradigm shift is going to happen and Jesus is going to come back and fix it all. Like, I can understand why that is really appealing to people who suffer so greatly in this life. So I will say, like, I suffered more as a child than I do as an adult. So that believing that Jesus is going to fix it all was helpful. But now my life feels so good and fun and free that I don't want it to be over. Yeah. And so I don't think that believing in the end times really does anything for me anymore because, like, I just feel so invested in, like, the here and now and the kingdom of God being here and now and enjoying this life and being good and loving to others, being kind of like my expression of Christianity. Like, I don't have a need for end times theology anymore. Yeah. What's going to happen? I don't know. Like, yes, there might be a collapse of civilization or the nation or an empire falling that affects me so deeply it feels like the end, but then it will be reborn again. Obviously, the environmental impact is a whole other story because that feels a little bit more like completely apocalyptic and not as, oh, there will be like a fire and then it's regenerative. But I think that a lot of these things happen cyclically. And that's why a lot of the like minor and major prophets of the Bible predict these experiences because, like, I think it's like Daniel or Isaiah has a prophetic vision similar to John in Revelation, but they're dealing with the exile to Babylon at that period of time. So their people are under oppressive forces. So I think that apocalyptic seeming literature comes out of periods of history like that. I don't know if there's an actual complete end though. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
Well, Do you want to add anything else before I give our homework?
No, I've said everything there is possibly to say about this. I am empty and drained.
Okay, well, I know we're only a few episodes deep into our podcast, but we're already planning a special Wednesday night youth group episode coming up where we're going to have movie night.
Yes.
So on our special youth group episode, we are going to talk about the movie 6, The Mark Unleashed. All about this topic.
Yes. So Ashley had never even heard of 6, The Mark Unleashed. But when we were talking about the end times and we were prepping for this podcast, I was like, oh, you know that movie that we watched growing up, 6, The Mark Unleashed? And she was just like, no, I do not know about it.
If it's not The Breakfast Club or The Little Mermaid, I didn't watch it as a child.
No, it is one of my least and most favorite end times movies. Like, Left Behind is an obvious one, but this movie starring the worst Baldwin, Stephen Baldwin, is absolutely crazy and insane. It is such a crazy watch. I ended up making you watch it, and the whole time you were just like, what? It is so wild.
Terrible.
But I think it would be so fun if we all watched it together and chit-chatted about it over popcorn.
So you can find it on Tubi or YouTube with lots of commercials.
Yes. But yeah, we would recommend listening to it or watching it, I guess. And then we want to chit-chat about it. And there will be spoilers. So.
Yes. And it does star Denny Duquette from Grey's Anatomy, Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yes.
The guy who's in all the Gods That Dead movies.
Yes.
And the Baldwin that sucks.
Stephen Baldwin.
Yeah. So, you know, big stars.
Yeah. No, I think it'll be fun. I highly recommend watching it. But with that, Ashley, take it away.
With that, blessed are the listeners, for they shall heal their irrational fear of waking up to find their entire family had been raptured without them. Find us at praisevitapod.com, praisevitapod on TikTok, Instagram, and newly, haven't told Bailee this yet, Threads.
Oh.
And Praise Vitapod on YouTube. Remember, if you want to see all my cool timelines, go to our Instagram or watch us on YouTube.
Yes.
All right. That's it. It is finished.
It is finished. Bye.
Bye.